The thing that rots my brain quicker than TikTok, the thing that quenches my thirst faster than liquid H2O, the thing that brought me into Paradox games because it is the only thing they offer. Wink wink. Despite popular and ancient belief, maps come in so many different shapes and sizes, have their own personalities, and can be manipulated to conform to both the male and female gaze at the same time, making maps the quintessential sensual experience for people who've never touched grass. And because I love maps so much, I'll be ruffling some feathers because we are ranking the maps of nearly every single Paradox game for a bit more than the past 10 years, from worst to best, based on a number of aesthetic and practical considerations. And of course, based on the games I've personally played, which instantly leaves out a lot of the older titles from the way back when, probably from before you were ever even born. Needless to say, but I'll say it anyway because some of you are rabid crazies, these are my opinions, and you are welcome to tell me your own in the comments below. And now, let's get to it, ranking Paradox's top 8 maps. Map number 8, and the worst Paradox map to have been conceived, goes to Victoria 2. Now it needs to be said that this is not an inherently ugly map or anything. In fact, the highest zoom level is extremely timeless in its paper-like design, and I do like the political map on the closest level, while the non-player map is shaded in. But in this day and age, Victoria 2's map just doesn't cut it. The terrain map is ugly and depthless, the water is just yuck, and overall, it's very obvious that Victoria 2 paved the way for CK2's visuals, which constituted a big step up from what we see right here. Moving around this map feels quite static and nowhere near as fluid as in the later games succeeding it, and many important menus completely hide the map behind full-screen windows. All in all, the map in Victoria 2, despite the top paper map, is the Paradox map I least wish to return to. Map number 7, and we're gonna have to say Crusader Kings 1. Thing is, I love what Crusader Kings 1 did here. I absolutely love how stylized it is, how clear it looks, and how defined it is. The latter, which is what I probably miss the most from modern Paradox games. But when approaching this map today, it bears very little resemblance in terms of gameplay logics and systems to modern Paradox games, and is going to come across as very clunky and weird, especially in terms of movement. In this way, in terms of ease of gameplay for a modern mind, this might be the worst one, but I still think its beautiful design, particularly because it used 2D visuals for everything they're worth, still has it remaining oddly charming, and is why I still love it so much all these years later. Map number 6, and I'm gonna have to get perhaps a little controversial here and put down Hearts of Iron 4. Hearts of Iron 4 is arguably the first of the quote-unquote modern Paradox maps, where we get things like dynamic changes in political coloring versus terrain maps, we get time of day changes since everything moves by the hour, and in general, the map does look nice in a technical sense. But from an aesthetic point of view, it's not my preferred one. The map is kind of small and was made before Paradox turned to giant maps despite a global scale. The map and its colors almost feel like they're oozing out of themselves instead of having defined lines and borders, and I generally don't like the aesthetic of it, the hollowed out colors of the nations, and of course, the map itself is nearly always clogged with symbols and UI elements, making it tough to truly enjoy what's already here. And yes, I despise all of the non-toggleable port icons, which almost always remain. I will say that Hearts of Iron 4 does look its best when zoomed in, and arguably, especially when you factor in things like trees and hills, railroads, rivers, and water turning to ice in the wintertime, and I love seeing airplanes duke it out in the sky. Hearts of Iron 4 is for all intents and purposes a beautiful looking map, but in my opinion, the aesthetics just don't really do it for me the way the maps higher on this list do. Map number 5, and it's time to talk about Crusader Kings 3. CK3 offers a fairly cool and stylized paper map on the highest zoom level and a beautiful terrain map on the lowest level. Compared to say CK2, which sports a relatively similar geographical scope, this map is massive, and I'm happy that CK3 kept the design of having title coat of arms be visible on the map along with their title colors. And so, on a technical level, CK3 looks fairly great, but it is in the details that I truly suffer. You see, I find that CK3's borders, CK3's nation colors, and the fact that the map lacks shading for non-player countries at the mid-zoom level, i.e. Fog of War, significantly decreases my enjoyment of it. Seeing as I was raised on CK2 and EU4, it pains me that CK3 took this different approach, because I find that the map suffers in definition for it. because kinda like with Hearts of Iron 4, this mid-level just feels unfinished and uncomfortable, as if it's lacking a layer of clothing or a touch of love. It's actually why I made my very own mod for it, to fix this particular issue. More than that, the fact that CK3 does not let you manually choose terrain or political map modes is a shame, and the paper map, despite being stylistically cool, feels a bit too busy and somewhat unappealingly colored to me. And that is why CK3 ends up as number 5 on this list. With map number 4, right above CK3, comes Big Brother CK2. CK2's map, despite clearly being of older code, still very much checks out. What I still love about it is its clear coloring and shading, because the different parts of this map just stand out so well. Sure, the visuals themselves are not super realistic or anything, but its stylistic design earns it a somewhat timeless appeal, no matter whether you are using the political map mode or the terrain one. And yeah, this game has a ton of map modes, which is what you'll mostly see going forward on this list, by the way. CK2 lets you play with a solid terrain mode, political map mode, religious map mode, cultural map mode, whatever you want really. You can permanently set it if you want to, and completely forget about when one map mode transitions into another. I also very much love that CK2's political coloring is so filled with color as to not appear hollow, and that the fog of war, the shading surrounding your nation, is so strong on the low and mid zoom levels. This is what to me creates a good map experience, because whether you notice it or not, your brain does, and the focus on your nation as the center of light and color on an otherwise fog of war-opt map really makes it pop, and truly makes you admire your creation. CK2's map is clearly smaller than those of the later games, and I do find certain shapes here kind of weird and non-appealing, like those of Britain, Norway, and Greece, all of which for some reason don't look as tasty as they usually do. And of course, since it's an older game, we're still using the arrow keys for movement, as opposed to WSD, which is a bit frustrating. All in all though, CK2's map is a bit old and somewhat sharp around the edges, but is still so playable and kind of timeless due to its stylized design. And number 3's bronze medal goes to EU4. EU4 is in many ways my favorite map. It's the first Paradox map to be truly beautiful, with a detailed terrain map of nice looking trees, mountains, and everything else. It's got unique buildings dotting the landscape of certain major cities. Its map projection is virtually unparalleled in beauty, which makes most regions look just right. It retains CK2's philosophy of shading and fog of war, and indeed truly colored in nations where the colors pop but feel detailed and worn. And now, the seasons change from summer to winter and back, giving everything personality all year round. And we also have a bunch of different map modes for easy access to information, or just a different look should you want it. My main gripe with EU4's map is its water visuals, which by now look fairly awful, looking way too bright and aliasy for my tastes. I tend to play EU4 with a dark water mod for this very reason, and in many ways this is the map's main drawback. The fact that the map, like CK2, is rather small isn't that big of a deal, mainly because EU4's gameplay suits it very well, I think, but I wouldn't have minded a bigger one. And so, EU4 deservedly wins the bronze medal for the 3rd best Paradox map of all time. The silver medal and spot of 2nd best Paradox map of all time goes to Victoria 3. Victoria 3's map is unparalleled in sheer size and beauty, sporting a truly global map that still retains the massive scope of a focused one. Never before have forests, rivers, roads, moving carts and trains, and cities themselves looked this beautiful, and the sheer depth and thickness of this image is just beautiful, especially when zoomed down. At the top level, we have a cool paper map like in CK3, but the difference is that I truly like the one in Vicky 3 because of its clear outlines and no-nonsense approach to map visuals. Of course, if you do want some nonsense, the DLCs often bring their own visual flair to this map, which I also very much appreciate, allowing you to spice it up in various themes should you wish to do so. And the same goes for the map table at the very top, which is an extremely nice touch. While I think Victoria 3's natural terrain is beautiful, I do sorely miss a manual political map mode here, and one that takes effect on the mid-level at the very least, because as it stands, Vicky 3 utilizes that same transition system we've seen in many games thus far. That's also why I made my own political map for this game too, which brings the political sphere back to the mid-zoom level. And if I had it my way, I would have liked a stronger fog of war with more darkness in the area surrounding that of the player. Victoria 3 also has going for it just how alive everything feels, whether it's ships sailing on the beautiful ocean or the wars raging on land, which completely turn entire borders into war zones and visual spectacles. We can't forget about the day and night cycle too, which create an even more dynamic map. I will say that if there's something I'd like to see more from Victoria 3's map, it would be a change in seasons as we move from summer to winter, with snow covering the northern parts of the map, and I'd love it if various parts of the world simply looked more different from each other. As it stands, much of the world is a shade of green, and even though this probably is how the world looks in real life, I think the map could do with some more contrast in certain places to make each region feel more unique. Maybe that sounds weird, but there's just something about this map that makes it feel just a bit more uniform than I wish it was. A minor complaint at the end of the day though. And so, the best map of any Paradox game ever and the gold medal of maps goes to Imperator Rome. And the reason is simple really. Imperator Rome constitutes essentially the best of all worlds. This map is truly massive, where every region feels like its own adventure no matter where you play. The terrain of this game is truly gorgeous, with detailed farmland, rivers, roads, pronounced hills and mountains, and towns and cities sprawling across the map as they get larger. We have a number of great map modes here too, from a transitionary mode between political map to terrain map, an always political map which is crucial to me, and a number of other ones which I love to see. In many ways, Imperator feels like a mix of the old and new, taking inspiration from both EU and Hearts of Iron 4 and what they had done before it. Zooming all the way out provides this beautiful marble-like feel to everything, and since we find ourselves in antiquity, it's only natural that everything has a certain golden era hue to it, which tends to be the go-to map lighting for games set during this era. Of course, even this map isn't perfect. Like in Victoria 3, most places with forests can feel too similar, for example, and I would have liked seeing more of a change in map design and feel when entering regions like Gaul, Germania, or Britain to contrast it with the brighter Mediterranean world, and I think the fog of war surrounding the player nation could have been made darker and more pronounced, instead of now being made up of a bunch of clouds or actual fog. And even though Imperator does have activity on the map in terms of animal life, it would have been nice to have more trade activity, like cars and ships a la Victoria. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much here, because everything else works so well, partly because of Imperator Rome's playability thanks to that EU4 DNA, which in many ways makes it something of a mix between what I love about the playability from EU4 and the beauty and size of Victoria 3's. That was my ranking of every Paradox map I've played, and the maps I think would be the most relevant for most people as well, even though this means an ugly case of March of the Eagles erasure. I think the beauty of these games is that even though we're so often looking at the same land masses here, that there are so many ways of portraying them, whether we're talking visuals, stylistic approach, or something as controversial as projection. This was definitely a tough exercise, so now I want to hear your ranking list. Let me know your thoughts on this video down below, and make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, my friend, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!